Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Another rough week for you. We might as well just get that out of the way. Anything you want to talk about there?
Yeah, just some self-inflicted wounds this week. I liked our chances going in just because I thought maybe we would have a little bit of a speed advantage, but the team we were playing had more size. And at the end of the day, they just ran it down our throat, and we gave away a lot of opportunities. We had one of the first plays, we threw a pick six, and we were in a hole, and it just didn't have enough to bounce back. Ended up losing 21-14.
I knew that one was much closer than the last couple, so I was hoping you would be able to pull that out. What are your chances for playoffs now? How's it looking?
Well, there's still some avenues for us to get into the playoffs, but we got to start winning. And it's like the schedule doesn't get easier as we head down the stretch, because we play on Saturday this week, and then we turn around and play on Thursday on a short week.
Are you getting any effects from the Hurricanes on Saturday?
Well,
or the Hurricane, I should say, not Miami. Jeez.
I'm hoping not, although I'm not worried about it as much as Coach Clausen is from Wake Forest. Did you see the comments he made?
No, because Florida State's playing at Wake, or are they playing in Florida State?
It's in Tallahassee, and as of right now, there's no issue.
So they're going to play the game.
They're saying as of right now, everything's set because they're thinking that the Hurricane's going to pass by then, or be in a different.
Yeah, it's supposed to be in South Carolina at Clemson because NC State's supposed to play there. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, I wonder if that one's going to be canceled. And I was thinking, if it's in the Carolinas at that point, is there going to be youth football around here? Because, it would be insane if NC State game is nah, it's not safe to play. But, every other weekend activity is we're on, baby.
Well, Wake Forest coach Dave Clausen, he says he hopes the ACC makes the right decision about FSU Wake. It's not just the flight. It's the hotel. Does it have electricity? Are they going to be able to feed us? You can't go down there and not have food.
So what does he want to do? Play it somewhere else?
Yeah, I think he's trying to get it moved potentially to Wake Forest, or just to have it canceled out. Because if they push it to, there's a weekend where Florida State has a bye, and Wake Forest is coming off their game with Army, that they could potentially bump it to a later date. But it's it does Florida State no justice, because then they come off their NC State and Clemson games. So it'd be on no rest.
Isn't this already the worst stretch for Florida State?
Yeah, this is the coming down the pike of the big 3-game stretch. So it's if you can get, and it's a home game, you have to boot. It's not like they're trying to dodge any of these games where don't play away. Everything within the Tallahassee area right now is saying it should be fine. The campus, as a precautionary thing, canceled classes from now to Friday, but left things open for Saturday. So they could still potentially be able to be on campus for the game if the weather holds out.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about for you, too, because I remember, I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up, but I thought when I played high school football, there was a game where a hurricane hit. Maybe it was even, I don't think it would have been Hurricane Katrina. I don't even know when it would have been. But I thought one of them delayed our game from Friday, and we ended up playing on Saturday. So, if it's already a Saturday game, would you play on Sunday?
I mean, if it would have to be something that both schools agree upon, and that you have the officials for.
Because they don't have ties in Pennsylvania, right?
What's that?
There's no tie. If you played a game, it couldn't end in a tie, or could they?
It could. I mean, if you just mutually just end it,
how would that go for playoff points?
It would go overall record, and then mutual opponents, and there's a variety of things that it could end up being that determine the seeding and points and all that stuff.
Yeah, I always think in fantasy too, they'll never end a tie, and then surprisingly, there's a good bit of ties, and I'm how? Devontae Adams catch the ball. Why are you dropping it, you idiot? You made me tie. That's why I never drafted him again from his original days. We'll get into fantasy football later in the show, though. Anything else you want to add about high school?
Yeah, we just crossed the midway point, so it's crazy how fast you blink your eye and the season goes.
Yeah, it is crazy. I saw like people were saying like, hey, if a third of the college football season's done, I was like, a third of it already? Oh my gosh. It feels like we're just getting into like the September Heisman. Kidding.
I know.
Have to put it out there and see who actually won it. It could be Blake Corum, baby. Michigan running back has like a ton of touchdowns. Get that Heisman out. It's either him or CJ Stroud, I think. Right? Isn't he the other leader? If I jinx him, if I hand Stroud a September Heisman, that means he'll choke down the stretch, right? So maybe my vote on the Southbound Sports Show would be the September Heisman. Let's give it to CJ Stroud. What about you, Matt? Who you vote for?
I'm not voting for anybody.
You should vote for CJ Stroud. I just told you why. What are you doing?
No, because that might end up reversing your jinx.
What's the one guy? What's the Alabama guy? Bryce Young?
Bryce Young.
I was getting annoyed with all his commercials, but then there's that one Dr. Pepper one where he's pretending to take that kid's parents. He's like, I'm their son now. That one cracks me up. So I'm like, all right, a point back in his favor for me. Because that's why people are like, Baker Mayfield sucks. I'm like, yeah, but he does all right in commercials. He's not like annoying me like Patrick Mahomes. Being a sneakerhead or whatever that one is that always comes on. I'm like, why are you showing me this commercial? It annoys me. Let's get into, we'll start with the Steelers. So you're probably seeing it more than me, but I'm getting a good bit of it. Do you think they have a chance of playing Pickett this weekend?
No.
Matt, people are calling for him. They wanted our guy gone as offensive coordinator. Like they're like, let's make a change. Let's get Matt Canada out of there. Let's get Trubisky out of there. And let's put Pickett in. I'm like, you want to put Pickett in with a brand new coordinator? That makes zero sense. What are you talking about?
But you know what? You know what happened if all of those scenarios played out? Do you want to know what they would do?
They would
the same blessed thing. Nothing would change. This is the offense that you have. Like this isn't like you just put in a SIM card and oh shit, now we're gonna run this great new offense that's gonna work. You're gonna run the same damn thing. It's the same terminology. It's the same plays. It's the same concepts. Nothing would change.
I forgot that he was at LSU. Matt Canada. I was thinking maybe he would have played with or coached Pickett before, but I don't think he did he? He was at Pitt a long time ago.
As a freshman, he might have.
It would have been like a long time ago. But like, these are the same Steeler fans that are like, hey, you need to get rid of this guy. And no, Canada was there the year before. He was at LSU when Pickett started. That's what I thought.
Okay.
So he might have helped recruit him or something. But they're the same Steeler fans that want Canada gone also think miraculously that there's just a great offensive coordinator just sitting around waiting for the Steelers to call them week 4. Like, hey, hell yeah, I'll coordinate the Steelers. Perfect. I was doing nothing else.
I think in a perfect circle, they fire Canada, bring back Todd Haley, and then we're back to square one.
There is a coordinator available, Scott Frost. I forgot about him. But he hasn't coordinated in the NFL. And Urban Meyer also available. He's more of a power spread guy, but that would be funny. But, I mean, obviously, I'm joking. Like, I'm not that delusional. I'm not like a Steelers guy that wants them to fire Matt Canada. I kind of just want them to, not throw all their eggs in the Trubisky basket. But Trubisky sucks, so it's like, I've been saying that for years. I said that when the Bears got him. And then, I joked and had him as my fantasy quarterback. And my other guy, Trevor Lawrence, has been lighting it up. So I'm like, Trubisky, I already cut his ass. and I had told the Steelers that I was going to wait later in the season till Deshaun Watson got back. Maybe I don't have to with Trevor Lawrence playing well. And I have Marcus Mariota, so he's been decent. He's not been playing Trevor Lawrence levels, but that's what I want to see, is them just get production out of a guy. I don't see how the Falcons can just be like, hey, Marcus Mariota, let's go, and he puts up decent numbers. But Trubisky's like, I'm going to put up bare bones numbers. And then Steelers fans are like, what's the problem here? Is it the coordinator? No, Trubisky sucks. He sucks. What do you expect? You can't blame it on the coordinator. If the guy's not making the right decision, and I mean, nothing against the guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. But if they're paying you millions of dollars to be the quarterback, that's why I honestly think the Haskins thing was so devastating, Matt. Because like if he was here, they could go to him instead of right to Pickett now. Right? You're not going to put Rudolph in because everyone knows that the offense is going to look probably even worse than what it looks like now. So I think Pickett's not going to play this weekend.
I think they should just pull a Harbaugh and just every series just put a new quarterback in.
Yeah, but that really hurts JJ September Heisman numbers, Matt. Did you see someone do the comparison between him and Stroud, where it's like their quarterback ratings are like insanely high, like higher than almost everyone else, I think. But like JJ just barely has enough attempts now to count. And they're like, damn it, if Harbaugh would have just played him the entire time, he might have Stroud numbers at this point. But I'm thinking, do you guys not watch Harbaugh's offense? Because how would the quarterback be scoring touchdowns if the running back has like 15 touchdowns already or whatever the hell? Yeah, it's like that's what you can't have that many touchdowns. Like you're already insanely like Michigan had like the highest 3-game scoring stretch in like program history going back to like the point per minute offense they had in like the early 1900s. So like if the offense is scoring that much, sure, but you can't be giving 100 touchdowns to your running back and then say, hey, if only our quarterback didn't split time, he might have more touchdowns. I mean, he did have some bad luck. There were a couple of players that got tackled like at the 1-yard line. I think I remember at least 2 of them, which could have easily been 2 more touchdowns for JJ, but that's kind of like where Harbaugh, like if you're going to split quarterbacks, the one that I always go back to, and I feel like I talk about on the show all the time, is like when Iowa had Ricky Stanzi as the backup to Jake Christensen, I think his name was. And the reason was like Christensen came in, his family might have played in the NFL or something, and he was like a high quarterback recruit, like 4 or 5 stars, like one of the highest Iowa quarterbacks they've ever gotten. And he was awful. And Kirk is like, the rating system can't be wrong, right? I have to split time with Stanzi. And we were at that pick game where it's like, Christensen comes in, the offense does nothing. Stanzi comes in, they move the ball. And I'm like, Kirk, by like the 3rd or 4th quarter, Pitt ended up winning. It's like, why did you go back to Christensen? Were you not watching the game? I mean, we were in the stands. I'm like telling you, like, what's he doing? Why is he putting that other guy back out there? He's making it too late. Does he not want to move the ball? And then I watch Iowa's offense this year, and I'm like, maybe he just likes it that way. Not moving the ball. But that's what the Steelers remind me of.
It's good for recruiting. Hey, you can come in and help us move the ball because we can't do it.
Hey, how many stars do you have? Because I'll play you no matter what. That's how that recruiting pitch went. Oh, there goes my stupid Alexa thing. So it's like, what are we going to do after Pickett gets in the game? What if he gets hurt? What if the offense doesn't move at all? That's my next big thing. What do you think happens if Pickett goes in too early and they still struggle?
I don't think anything changes. Like that's why I don't think there's any rush to put him out there because the issues that they have are the same issues. Like they've let the offensive line deteriorate and they did address it, but it's not like they're spending like a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing. They've drafted Warren late and they already had Najee Harris. So they have these 2 running backs with nobody to block for them. And it's like all of the same issues are still there. Like you can't have these long drop back passes when there's rushers in your face.
And that's where I'm looking at it too. It's almost like, hey, how is this going to change the team? And I talked about it early in the year. I said, let's wait and see what the standings are, because there's a break point where you either think we're going to make the playoffs. Right now they're 1-2. If they're 1-3 or 1-4, why are you putting Pickett in? If, like right now, I would say if the Steelers were like 5-6 and they were right there for that last spot, then you go with Pickett, right? Because then the rest of my team is good enough to make the playoffs. Right now, you don't know that. You have a negative point differential. You could blame that on the offense, but if your defense is giving up a ton of points, at some point, you have to say, maybe we don't have enough this year. So throwing Pickett in there isn't going to help us. It's not going to win us games. It's just going to put us into a situation where you're like one of the other teams that are constantly, like the Browns, constantly looking for a new quarterback, That's where they talk about, hey, we're the Steelers, we have all this consistency, coaching, we have the same coaching. Remember back in like the late 90s where it's like, hey, do we start Cordell Stewart? Do we start someone else? How about this guy from the XFL, Tommy Maddox? Hey, who else are we going to put in at quarterback? And then finally, they get Ben Roethlisberger, and they have that consistency for over a decade. And so now fans are like, well, where do we go? Do we just try to find that? Shoving Pickett in doesn't really work out. We list all the quarterbacks that are at the top of their game now. Most of them have sat for a couple of years and learned the game. It's that simple. It is that simple. So that's what I think they have to do. Speaking of quarterbacks, did you see they ripped off my man Tom Brady by having the play clock mess up on the Jumbotron or the end zone TV? Did you see that? So late in the game, they needed a 2-point conversion, right? To tie the game.
Well, he almost ran out of time on the touchdown.
Aaron Rodgers said that the end zone play clock kept jumping around from 20 to 25. So it was counting down to 20 and it jumped back up to 25. So it wasn't in sync. And I think he said, like, well, I'm obviously not going to like say anything during the game because he's on the other team, right? And I think the game was at Tampa Bay. So like if you're the home team, and obviously Tom Brady might not have noticed it, right? Because Aaron Rodgers is on the sideline. So he might be looking up and watching it because like whatever he's watching. They show like replays on the Jumbotron, and he notices it because he's a quarterback. Like his eyes go there, right? Yeah. Tom Brady's looking at the defense, so he glances up to see where it's at, sees that it's at 25 again. But if the real one was down to 20, and then they were close to getting the playoff, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, my mic hit it, but yeah, they were close to getting the playoff because I think he thought he had a couple more seconds and he didn't. So it makes perfect sense because why would a Super Bowl champion be struggling like that without any type of issue? And I almost wonder, people were saying like, oh, they did it on purpose. I'm like, but why would you screw your home team over? Like if they were in Green Bay, I think it would be more of like a scandal or whatever, but it was at home. And it's their first loss of the year. Obviously, I don't mind that it was to the Packers, right? So who cares? Let's go get the Packers back up there, tied for first in the division. And Tom Brady will come around. He's the GOAT, so I'm not too worried about it. But I do need them to get it figured out before they play the Chiefs. I think that's a Sunday night football game. I don't want to watch Sunday night and see my man get embarrassed like that. That's too much for me. My heart can't take it, Matt.
Well, and that, like, as a quarterback, you're watching the official that's over top of you, and he puts his hand up whenever, like, the clock's winding down. So even if the play clock's dead or it has some issue, the official on the field is going to keep you right.
Well, that's the one thing where that I also wondered, like, maybe if don't they also have the play clock down on the field though, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why you'd be looking up the Jumbotron. So it kind of makes a good story, but I also wonder if neither of those things were like in sync with the official. Because like if one's wrong, I'm assuming they're all wrong. And it's the guy on the field, right? He's the lead judge.
Yeah.
So it could just be a little mistake. And that guy, I think that guy's supposed to watch the clock, though. Like that's basically his job.
Yeah.
So like it'd be weird but I guess if all the clocks are out of sync, his eyes looking at the one on the other side of the field, because he's in the end zone, right? So he's looking at Tom Brady and he's watching the play clock that's on the other side of the field because there's one in each end zone. So if all four were out of sync, he might think that he's on the right one. But if the one that Tom Brady's looking at on the opposite side of the field was a couple seconds fast or slow, I guess, then it would definitely cause an issue. So I don't know. That's a theory that's out there. I honestly would be surprised that someone wouldn't have noticed it. But like my man AB said, did you see AB?
Yeah.
Putting out messages about how everyone hates him because he speaks the truth. That really had nothing to do with anything, but I wanted to mention it because me and AB, very similar guys, you know, just great, always top of their game.
Yeah, assholes.
Top Guns, right? Fellow Top Gun. We take off our shirts, we're ripped, and jumping around the end zone, right? Speaking of great guys like that, Pro Bowl, Matt, I'm going to do some rapid fire stuff here. Getting rid of the Pro Bowl, and they're going to play flag football. And to me, I just wonder, why do it at all? And I've been thinking about it because I kind of was like annoyed, and I thought, my initial worry that I text you as part of the show notes were, hey, if they start doing more flag football, is that going to hurt schools playing real football? And then again, is that going to start to cut out like college games, right? Because if you play tackle in high school, you're more inclined to watch tackle on TV. And if you've watched tackle football in high school, you're more inclined to watch tackle football in college, right? Because you're like, hey, I had fun. Even though I was like in the band or like I didn't play at all, I would go to the games. A lot of the kids went. We tailgated. There's a homecoming parade, all this stuff. And then in college, it's like, yeah, I want to keep that going. Go out with my friends. We'll all go to the game. Like everyone's kind of like, hey, you going to the game? Going to the game on Saturday? You're brand new. You're a freshman. It's a great way to meet people. And so like if they start doing that in high school and doing flag football, are people still going to attend? Because like how many sports in high school even get attendance? That's not just family. I'm talking about actual students going. It's really only football and basketball, right?
I would think that probably some of the baseball, softball.
Baseball has a different, but like, it's not like an entire student section.
No.
Right? I know basketball, because I'm thinking of like, and this was years ago when I played, but like baseball, we had a small student cheering section, but it was only like a handful of people at most. Even some of our bigger games, you'd get like 10 to 20 kids, but like for football, there was like an entire section. For basketball, again, it was a smaller section, but I would say it was at least double or triple what baseball or some of the other ones got. Soccer was basically non-existent where I grew up, but I could see other teams playing down here. Like lacrosse is really big in North Carolina, so I could see lacrosse maybe having some. But again, are they there just to socialize? Because like in football, I feel like a lot of kids, they learn the cheers. Like you go to Michigan, you get the orientation there, they go over the cheers and stuff, and you're like kind of wondering, because it's funny, like you go to school and there's a bunch of international students and they're talking about the football atmosphere at orientation. I'm like wondering, like, do these kids even know what the heck is going on? like
they're receiving their indoctrination.
Like, do they care? Because like the one girl like asked me like, what is this part? And I'm like, oh, it's like a sports thing. Like, we have a team. Like that's what they're talking about. You can get tickets. And she's like, oh, do we have to? I'm like, no, but it's probably fun to do it. Like I'm gonna do it. And then she's like, oh. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay. All right. Why are you telling me that? I really don't care if you're going or not. I don't even know you. This is like an orientation thing. So that's like where I wonder going forward if things change and they try to splinter it with like, hey, flag football. I wonder if you're going to see people that are just casuals that are like, yeah, I'm more of a flag football guy. I'm not going to watch tackle football. Or vice versa. I don't know. Because you're the coach. What do you think?
But I guess to go back to your original thing, like, number one, I looked at, from the NFL perspective, is it written into the contracts about if you make the Pro Bowl, you're going to make X amount? You know, like, I don't know what all the ins and outs are of qualifying for the Pro Bowl, because the way that it used to be versus, well, now we're still in the playoffs, we're in the contention for the Super Bowl, so I'm opting out. And so you have, like, guys that really aren't all pro players being made on the Pro Bowl team. So I think like that's kind of diluted down some of the quality of it. And, you know, I guess I kind of look at it more, if you're going to treat it like this glorified scrimmage and there's really no incentive for the players to compete in it, find something where you get those best players playing at a higher level. So it's like doing some of those skills competitions might be a way to show like how well trained they are. That like the average person's like not going to be able to perform the same way that these players are doing it.
That's a good point, because that's what I was thinking they should do instead. I think they should have not just like a skills competition. I don't think it should be separate. I would like to see going up against, like, leading into the Super Bowl, you do like an all-star like skills competition like they're doing, like a punt, pass, and kick. But I want to see like average guys doing it, right?
Yes. Here's your pro group. Here's
your guy, and like you're on a team. Like there's I think I mentioned King of the Hill on the show before, but like I love the TV show King of the Hill. It's like an old cartoon from the 90s. But there was an episode where they were at the Superdome, and Hank, the lead character, had to throw a pass into like a football-sized hole. Think of like the Dr. Pepper challenge for students, but he only had one chance to do it, or he could let former Cowboys quarterback take the throw. And so, of course, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go that. And that guy missed. So Don Meredith misses the throw, and he like tries to tackle him and fight him at the game. He's like, why don't you take your coat off? And he's like, because I practice with the coat on. I don't play football anymore because these guys are old. So I almost wonder, like, if you do 3 groups, because you're missing a group, Matt, alums. Like Fran Tarkenton's tweeting it, he's watching Michigan football games. What if he decided to come to a skills competition? Do you think he could throw the ball? He's old as hell.
He could probably spin it a little bit.
Like, because they always, like, you know how like they always do for like the ESPN thinks that like, hey, this is good content if we have our journalists run the 40-yard dash and show how slow and how they have no form they are, you know? It's like, that's great content. It's like, this guy's running like a 6-second 40. What the hell is he doing? Like, if you're going to do that for a thing, don't you think you should at least be running some? Right? T.O.'s my man's out there. He's running like faster than Tyreek Hill. He's like 50 years old or however old he is. So give me some content. Why am I watching ESPN's guys do it? Give me guys that are at home training for it, like American Idol. Because this is where I think it could really take off. People watch people sing on American Idol, and it's like, why am I watching this? Right? Oh, I could discover. I'm sitting at home. I might discover this person. Why not have these people do their skills competitions where they're competing against dudes like, and I'm not talking about super old alums. I know I joked about Fran Tarkenton, but like Terrell Owens, he says teams won't sign him. He can still play. What if he did the skills competition and he beat current players? Or what if Joe, UPS driver, beats current players at like the combine drills, you know? He's like 6'5" and he's like just fast as hell. He's like, yeah, they didn't really have football where I grew up. We played 8-man. Never had a scout come out, but here I'm going to do the skills competition. I'm going to crush it. You don't think a team would then maybe take a shot at him? So like you're bringing in some of the American Idol type deal. And you're letting people that are like, hey, we're going to do it. And you're also doing it Hell, you could even do it throughout the season at the stadium. Like you have something set up and because they already, you know how they do tailgates, right? So like the NFL does like sponsored tailgates throughout, maybe some people don't know, but like they'll do like their own sponsored thing. Even baseball games have like that radar gun thing where you go and you can do the radar gun.
Yeah.
It's usually like for kids, but there's always like a 40-year-old dude that's like, let me see if I still got it, baby. And he's like, give me 3 more. He's like taking as many throws as he can, trying to impress his girlfriend or whatever. Like that would be this, but it would be on steroids because people might actually think that an NFL team might call them. And if they do well throughout the season, they could get called into the Pro Bowl skills competition before the Super Bowl. So you'd be on TV that week before. Because there's a week with no game, right? So they messed around with putting the Pro Bowl there. While you're interviewing players, you could have like a break in the action. Like, hey, we're talking to Tom Brady's coming up. Is he going to win another Super Bowl? But before that, we have Joe from UPS. He's out here. He's going to run against Terrell Owens. And you're like, all right, I'm going to watch this. Because, like, why not? Hey, we're going to have a jugs machine throw 10 balls at 100-something miles an hour. Who can catch more with one hand? It's like Terrell Owens or this Joe guy. And you're like, all right. And then, hey, we're going to throw into a mix our old friend, Antonio Brown. He's here. And you're like, all right, awesome. What a curveball. I love Antonio Brown. Get him in there and then throw Tyreek Hill in there. And then they're all trying to see who can catch more balls with one hand. Right? And they can easily do a 4-screen, split screen thing. That's what I want to see. I like flag football. I like it for kids. But like pros doing it, number one, they don't train to pull flags, right? So I think it's going to kind of be a mess. That's what I don't like about it. I would almost rather have them play touch football. That's just me. Because like they're still going to like keep the head up. Like you're going kind of for a tackle. You can kind of wrap them up, doing touch, not knowing that you don't have pads on or whatever. But flag football is a little bit different. It's almost like if you're used to catching a flag or doing jukes with the flags on, you're going to be a little bit better than someone that never runs with them on. Like if you're more worried about, hey, I need to run so this guy doesn't rip my leg out of socket. Like that's what I'm going to be worried about. Not like juking so they can't get my flag. So I honestly think if a professional flag football player might be better than some of the NFL guys for that reason. Same with like driving cars. Like if you're going from like NASCAR to like a different international thing, it's like you're not going to be doing the same thing because you're not used to that car. You're used to driving in circles, right? What are you doing?
Fair enough.
That's my thought process behind it. Hopefully that makes sense. But would you watch that if they did that?
I would be more inclined to watch something like that as opposed to the like stink fest that it's been. Because,
well, they don't do it like a competition, right? They need to do it like a competition where, hey, here's our Pro Bowl. We're going to show off, and then these guys are going to do it, but then that's kind of the end of it. It's like, hey, here's our guy that has the best bench press. Awesome. Really cool. Thanks. One random dude did the best bench press. But why not do lineman drills where you're picking the best lineman and you have these other guys mixed in, right? Because you don't have to have 50 Joes off the street. No, you filter them out throughout the season. And it also gives them other things to show, like on the NFL Network, right? Hey, here's some highlights from the tryouts throughout the regular season. How many times do they like show old highlights or like old playoff clips or whatever? Show other things that you can do to bring interest in. People might, hey, I saw that they were doing a tryout thing at the Panthers game. I'm going to go this weekend, I think. Yeah, I'm going to go try to throw a football. Like, could you imagine, like, do something classy, like put some beer bottles up on a railing like they used to do with like cowboys shooting guns? And like you and Tom Brady have to see who can throw the most off. Can you break a bottle with your arm? Right? I went to Chuck E. Cheese for a birthday party, and a dude, I swear, played that football throwing game like 10 times in a row. I think he was just trying to prove to himself that he could throw a football. Guys would want to do that. Some positions might not be as boring or like might not be as exciting, but if you did a like offensive lineman group, a running back group, a wide receiver group, a quarterback group on offense, like that's it.
Just do Oklahoma's.
Then on defense, you do like a safety group or like a defensive backs group, a linebackers group, and then a lineman group. Like I think you just try to make it general, so that way you don't have that many. If you have too many groups, it's going to be tough. And then you can have enough to mix it in. Like, I don't know what would be the defensive backs group. Like, you're kind of just running the same as wide receivers, right? Except now you're knocking balls down.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, they did. And there, at one point, they did try, like, there was a flag league that was, like, professional flag people that played NFL guys. And the NFL guys got torched because the rules were so different than, like, the NFL traditional rules.
Yeah, see, that's what I was predicting that. I didn't know that they already tried it and did it, but that's the thing that's going to be tough. That's why I said almost just play touch would be better with no pads. But then even then, you can still get hurt. Like, instead of, like, putting a hand inadvertently up in someone's face mask, now you're just poking them in the eye. Unless they're wearing helmets. I guess they would, right?
They could.
Otherwise, how are you going to know what team they're on? Some other colors are pretty close. I don't know. What's the other thing I had for the NFL? Hold on a second. Maybe I don't have anything else. Oh, no, the Carolina Panthers thing where they think that the Panthers are tipping their plays based on the lineup of McCaffrey. And I think it's more a coaching thing where a lot of those are supposed to be your reads, but I have a feeling it's kind of being hardballed where they're telling Baker, you're not going to run the ball. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, but that almost reminds me of an old video from years ago that when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, they used to say, if the running back's heels are on the quarterback's toes, it's outside zone because he's going side to side. If he's playing deeper, it's an inside zone. Or like an inside run scheme. And like they pointed out that like that was something he was doing to try to like set the backs up. And it didn't matter that they knew that it was like that you were running outside zone because there were play actions and other stuff you could do off it to protect it.
Well, it reminds me of setting your playbook up over time, right? Because like I brought up the Harbaugh thing because I have a pretty good feeling that Harbaugh at Michigan tells his quarterbacks not to keep it whenever he knows he doesn't have depth, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I talked about JJ, that Michigan had a quarterback battle. Cade McNamara, the quarterback last year, lost, but he got hurt. Before he got hurt, Harbaugh was letting JJ run. Miraculously, Cade's out for like 4 to 6 weeks. And this first like game back, he barely ran, if at all. Like, all the reads became just handoffs. And it's going back, like, this has happened for, like, 3 or 4 years in a row. So, like, you can't tell me that it's not a directive saying, hey, don't run the ball. Because, like, otherwise you'd be mixing it in. And it hurts your effectiveness. I think that's why last year, when the Panthers got Cam Newton back, I think Matt Rule was kind of like, you know what, I don't give a shit. And Cam Newton started running the ball, and it really opened things up for the offense. But whenever you have a guy that doesn't run, Sam Darnold, it feels like Baker Mayfield isn't taking those chances. He's handing it off every time to McCaffrey, which you have McCaffrey, great. But then don't line him up differently, right? Because I don't think it's so much of, like you were saying, like really slight adjustments, right? Like heel to toe, that's only like a step. Like McCaffrey's back a full yard to make the reads easier. But guess what? In the NFL, that's also making him like a step slower to get to the hole, right? So if Baker's going to hand it off, it would make sense for them just to play tighter, or hell, just do what Harbaugh used to do when he was in the NFL and run this pistol. Run the pistol then. That's why I'm kind of confused on some NFL teams that don't run it. Because like if you're actually not going to have your quarterback run, why are you doing the read at all? Because like if your guys are blocking run, then you have to run. Because your guys will be downfield. So there's zero chance that Baker Mayfield's going to pass out of this, but he's also not going to keep it and run it because he has McCaffrey. So take out that weird guesswork that I think a lot of teams run it, and I think the coaches tell them to do it, and for whatever reason, that's it. You know, that's I don't know. But you're a coach. Do you agree or disagree with me?
I don't know.
We'll find out more. If was that Orlovsky that was saying that? I think it was, wasn't it?
He was just too busy being excited that Jimmy G ran out of the back of the end zone and threw a pick six.
I was going to bring that up because he said that he's vindicated, but then they said that he still took 12 steps back there. I feel like we've been going long. I don't know if my timer's right. Do you have anything else for the NFL?
The only other thing I'm trying to think. I'm drawing blanks now.
All right, I just want to make sure I give you time to talk about your Florida State Seminoles here. But I did want to bring up, because I talked about fantasy, and I always try to give like little tips throughout the season, right? Right now, the Eagles' defense is back, baby. In my league, available, right? Which is baffling to me because I have the number 2 defense right now, which is the Buccaneers. I've talked about it before. I got them for a steal. The Eagles right there are, and I mean, there's a pretty good gap, I think. So you have the Bills and Bucks both over 40 points, 43 and 46. The Bills are number 1. The Eagles are the third best defense. They are 3 overall. They have 35 points, averaging 11.7 a game with our scoring. The Broncos, also available in our league, they're 4th overall, averaging 10.7 a game. And then the Jaguars are 5th, which Jaguars would scare me a little bit more, but it also depends on who's playing quarterback. If Trevor Lawrence is going to continue to grow and be good, it might not matter. They might stay this way. Now, the Eagles do play the Jags this weekend. But I wanted to bring it up. Check your defense. Don't be afraid to make a move. If your defense is going to give you 5 points a week and you're losing, and there are defenses around that are scoring 10 plus points a week, that's going to be a major bump for you. Because, like, let's see, I don't know if this guy owns 2 defenses, but one of the defense in our league that's owned is the Washington Commanders. They average 1.3 points a game. Why are they on your roster? You could take your pick of the other top 3 that I mentioned. Go with the points. Don't be afraid to make a move. That's my last tip. You're just setting yourself up to lose, baby. Let's get into... I wanted to talk real quick about Major League Baseball. They're talking about Aaron Judge, right? How he's chasing all these Yankee records. His records don't mean anything. Right?
Wow.
He's not going to come up close to Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds had 70-something home runs?
Yeah.
Aaron Judge is at 60-something? And I think I sent you the numbers. I didn't find a fact check on this, but it was something like Aaron Judge has now been... Let me see if I can find the right thing. I think I sent it to you. Aaron Judge was intentionally walked for the 18th time. Great. And everyone's like, why are they pitching to him? He's having a great year. My man Barry was intentionally walked 120 times. He hit 73 home runs, Matt. They play 162 games. He was almost walked intentionally every game. That's insane. My man could have had 100 home runs that year. They didn't even give him the chance. So don't talk about Aaron Judge. I know he's having a great year, but don't even compare him by saying, well, yeah, Barry Bonds, you don't know if he was on steroids. It's like, all right, well, then why didn't he test positive? And if he is on this secret list, why don't you just make it public? Or was everyone on steroids? Right? Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't just ignore, like, the best time to be a baseball fan. Baseball's nowhere near as fun. Now you have dudes banging on trash cans to steal signs, which is very blatant, even on TV, but no one's watching on TV, so you don't even catch it.
Wearing Apple Watches.
Yeah, wearing watches, doing all this other shit. So that's my thing. It's like, oh, Aaron Judge, great year. Awesome, great year. But to me, he's already 30 years old. He only has 218 home runs in his career. You're gonna be a nobody. Like, he's already 30. Even if he plays to like where Pujols is right now, is he gonna come anywhere near Pujols' numbers? No. Like, if anyone should be hyped up, and I know he's going for the Yankees record, like, awesome. Who cares? It's just a team record. Do people get pumped up when the Rays get their home run record broken? No? I didn't think so. So that's it, right? You have anything else you want to add on to that?
Well, no, just because it's
they're ignoring your guy Pujols, man. That's all I'm saying. Pujols is out there doing it. He's like 100 years old. He's closing, and he's like, what, third or fourth now all time?
Yeah. But I think it's weird that they have people like Barry Bonds that are commenting on games and being like, maybe I should just go get an at-bat real quick and reset my clock.
Barry Bonds, man, he could come back. I told you, he's older than I thought, but it's like, you don't know. With the DH everywhere now, you don't know. He can't be worse than like some of the Pirates guys that are hitting like a $180, right?
It would definitely draw people to PNC.
He might not hit home runs, but he could at least Tony Gwynn it out there. Because like I said, they were so afraid of him, he's getting walked 120 times or whatever. We talked about his walks before, his total numbers.
The question that I have is how bad does the Pirates' attendance have to be? Because they showed side-by-sides of, like, it looked like the pandemic was going on. Like, there's nobody at PNC. How long do the stands have to be empty before they're like, maybe you need to either sell or, like, just get rid of the team?
Well, the sad thing is they're 27th. Tampa Bay is worse than them. Miami's worse than them, and Oakland's worse than them. And does it have the percentage on here? No, of course not.
But all of those teams have been relatively playoff bound, like, or deep playoff runs, not just a one and done.
Well, the Pirates thing is, it comes down to corporate sponsorship. Pittsburgh's a sports town. If he's able to sell corporate sponsorships, that's where you get all the attendance numbers. There's not 15,000 people there a game at home. There's not. Are you serious? You've said in the pictures, like, you've been to the game, there's nobody there. You can say, oh, we're going to move to so-and-so city, we're going to do this, but no one's going to come. Like, look at Miami, big town city. They're like, oh, there's other stuff to do here. The Tampa Bay, also worse. Tampa Bay Bucks have no trouble getting fans in the stands because they have Tom Brady. Like, who are you going to see play Tampa Bay baseball? Oakland. Hey, who are you going to see? I mean, Oakland had trouble as a city with football or whatever before anyway. But like, Pittsburgh's there where they have enough corporate sponsorship until that sponsorship drops to where they're not making money off the attendance thing. Like, hey, we have this great stadium. It's still a point for people and businesses to go and say, like, hey, we got tickets to PNC. Do you want them for free? And employees are going to be happy with it because they like to go to the stadium. And if people don't want them, then the businesses are going to say, well, we need a smaller package next year because we had to burn through a bunch of tickets that nobody wanted. And then that's where Pittsburgh is going to say, well, we either need to lower prices or do something. But like, if you have a lower payroll, people aren't going to come. And I know Pittsburgh's like, they're friends of the show, right? So like, it's like, yeah, I'm going to talk shit on you guys. But I'm not even doing that. I'm trying to help them out. Because like Detroit, our other friends of the show, they're 21st in attendance. But they're kind of in the same boat. It's like, hey, we're going to rebuild. And then they made some bad mistakes where the Pirates are like, hey, we're going to rebuild. We're just never going to stop rebuilding. Like Detroit right now and Pittsburgh are very similar. So that's what I want to see. I want to see a marked improvement from them doing a rebuild. It's going to be hard, I think, going forward with teams like, oh man, my Braves are only a half game behind the Mets right now. But like teams like Los Angeles and how the Cubs are doing it and how the Yankees are doing it, where they're just going to keep paying more and more and say, we don't care about the luxury tax, right? We don't care. The Dodgers are tax. The Dodgers are getting like Freddie Freeman after he wins the World Series with the Braves. They're like, you know what? We definitely don't want that to happen again. We're going to take him off your hands. And we're going to take anyone else you guys don't want. And we're going to just pay the fine because we don't care. And we're going to be in the discussion now. We're going to be the West Coast Yankees. And so everyone else is kind of like, well, hope the Braves get hot. Right? Because that's basically what baseball's been coming down to. So, I don't know. Your Cards look like they're going to make it, so I feel like we're going to be talking about baseball coming up soon. I hope the Braves win the division, though. I don't even know what the playoffs are like this year. Isn't it the expanded year? So, like, I think the bottom 4 play a 3-game series? Or is it the bottom... I don't even know who gets a bye. Do 2 teams get a bye? I don't even... Let's see what this thing says. I wish it was like football where they're like, hey, we're going to have a projected bracket, but they don't have that. But like the Braves are already clinched in the playoffs. I want to say, are they taking 3 wild cards now? The lowest division winner plays the in that first round with the 3 wild cards, I think. And they play a 3-game series. But we'll be checking back on that because I don't know. Any other unrelated sports things do you want to talk about before we get to college football?
No.
All right. It finally came true. I told you if Florida State, actually stayed undefeated, they'd be ranked, Matt. And they got their ranking in.
Finally. Another hurricane coming in now.
Now do you admit that there's no bias against Florida State?
Oh, let's not get crazy. I feel like enough people lost, and with the way that Florida State finally played, like, it was nice. Like, this season so far, watching the Noles has reminded me of the teams of old, where, like, you used to be like, oh, they're playing Boston College this week. I'm just going to put this on as background stuff, like, while I'm doing other things, knowing that this is going to get out of hand really quick. And it was nice that by the time I put the kids to bed, the game was done.
Well, like you said, now they're playing Wake Forest. Wake Forest is ranked 22nd. Florida State's 23rd. And my only beef with this is I know Florida State's undefeated. They have Pitt ranked 24th. Pitt should be way higher. They only lost to number 8 Tennessee. And they were in the 17 range. You can't tell me that Pitt shouldn't be higher than A&M right now. Miami sucks.
Well, and that's why I'm happy that they're in the top 25, but I don't see that being like it's not what it's cracked up to be in the early part of the season.
Oh, no way. Because I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, so Michigan comes out and does the hardball thing where they play Maryland and they said, we're going to choke this game out of you. Right? We're going to go out, and they played like crap. They had, I think they had fumbled the ball like 3 times. I don't think they lost the ball, but like one of them was like we basically lost it because we fumbled it back 25 yards. So it was like a 3rd and 25, and basically they got out of scoring position. So like they had a ton of mistakes, and they still had the lead at halftime. And I thought that has to be so disheartening for Maryland. Where you're like, we're playing a hell of a game, and we might be able to pull up the offset, but we can't even have the lead at halftime. And then you told me the spread was like 18 or something, and Michigan just running the ball. They're like, hey, we're going to give our running back the ball, and he's going to run. It was
like 17 and a half. I was like, oh, definitely. Like, they're playing Maryland. They always just, like, kick them in the teeth. Like, that's a lock.
Yeah, they always do kill Maryland. Well, the one year they played them tight, I think it was a couple factors. I mentioned Cade was hurt, so there was no backup. So Harbaugh told JJ, like, yo, you're not running the ball. So that took a big chunk out of Michigan's offense. And then he also hardballed it where like they get in the second half, they have the lead, they get the ball, and he says, we're going to run 3 or 4 runs in a row and just punt for the next 2 drives. So it was like he didn't even care in the third quarter to try to mix it up. He was like, I'm going to see if I can run it down your throat. And I mean, it kind of was working at one point. But like Blake Corum, like no joke, he has 9 touchdowns this year. And that game against Maryland, I'm trying to look and see if they have by game on here. He had 243 yards and 2 touchdowns. The announcer kept saying, well, Maryland's looks like they're the better team. If only they didn't have Blake Corum. I'm like, if only you mean they didn't have Michigan's running game. Like if only Michigan didn't have their running game where they're just killing them on the ground. It was almost like Ohio State last year where it's like, we're going to run the ball all over you. And if you can't stop us, it doesn't matter if you're scoring or they scored late. Michigan almost did have a chance to cover, but then they did, hey, we're going to turtle it. And I think Michigan had a 15-point lead. Maryland, I think they knocked Maryland's quarterback out, which is Tua's brother. And so I kind of felt bad because I'm wondering, like, is Maryland good this year? Because like you said, Maryland usually gets killed. Maryland was 3-0 going into that game, and they've been winning pretty big too. And I don't know if they were receiving votes, but like coming in, Maryland didn't seem that bad. But I'm like, with Loxley, I never know. After this loss, could they end up 3-9? Yes. Could they also end up, last year they were what, 7-6 or something? So like, could they end up better than that? Could they end up 9-3? Maybe. I could easily see them winning every game except for now Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, right? Rutgers lost to Iowa, didn't look good. Rutgers didn't look good. Wisconsin didn't look good. Northwestern looks like ass. Indiana hasn't looked good. Purdue is a coin toss at that point. And then Michigan State has looked bad. Their own coach said that he's a horseshit coach. That's a direct quote. After they said, Tuck coming or whatever, they had that campaign to get, because after he made all that money, and then he also started NF Tuck, like NFT Tuck, but it's NF Tuck. Did you see that?
No.
It's the next level of Chiswick coins, Matt, where your coach goes 4-7 and you're like, we're going to commemorate this with a coin, Gene Chiswick style. Iowa State did that. Michigan State was like, hey, we went 11-2 and we beat Michigan. We're going to commemorate that with NFTs. We're going to call them NF Tucks. And then Tuck season, baby. And now Michigan State has looked so bad. They won 2 games. They lose to Washington. They got killed by Minnesota. They play Maryland. If Maryland boat races them, they then play Ohio State. Could they be 2-5? Maybe 2-6. The Wisconsin game could be a toss-up. I don't know how to feel about Wisconsin. They could have just got Ohio Stated. I don't know. But then they also go to Michigan this year. Michigan State does. And if they beat Michigan this year and their team goes like 3-9, then I would be telling Harbaugh to get his shit together. But who knows? Michigan State might not be there. So I want to see Maryland play this weekend. If I'm a betting man, Maryland's playing at home. I just worry because I'm pretty sure Michigan hurt both their best receiver, Jarrett, who's a 5-star, I think that's his name, and then Tua, his brother, which I feel bad calling him Tua's brother, but I can't remember his name.
Tolia.
Yeah, so he might be hurt too. So it really stinks if Michigan hurt Maryland's 2 best offensive weapons and then cost them the game against Michigan State. That's my thoughts on that game. Because they really grinded it out. Michigan did the same exact thing in the opener last year against Rutgers, where you're like, if you're watching the game as a casual fan, you might think, this one's close. But if you watch Michigan, you're kind of like, they're grinding this game out, and this game's going to be nothing. They had the 15-point lead. It did make me kind of mad at the new defensive coordinator when he let Maryland's backup quarterback score that touchdown with like a minute left or whatever to give them a chance for the onside kick. Because I was like, what are you doing? This game could have easily been over. All you have to do is like not go into prevent turtle mode against the Turtles, ironically. But then I'm like, hey, will Michigan drop in the rankings because people don't watch the game and see like a score that's closer than they thought?
Nope.
No, because Clemson's like, we don't want that 4th spot either, dog. We're going to go to overtime, and we were actually really close to losing that game. And there were times where I thought they're going to lose. Nah. They pull out against Wake, which could spell danger for Florida State, right? Or it could help them out. Going to overtime, having an emotional loss, losing to Florida State next week. That's what Notre Dame's excuse was when they lost to Marshall, right? Why would you laugh at that? That was a true statement.
That is a true statement. It just cracks me up that Notre Dame lost to Marshall.
Why? We Are Marshall. They have that movie, Matt. Their plane went down.
Yeah, a long time ago, like in the 70s.
So they can't have pride anymore about that?
Bobby Bowden was coaching West Virginia when that happened.
Pirates still milk Roberto Clemente. Same exact situation, same era.
Wow.
You can't tell me I'm wrong. People might be offended by it, but planes did go down. Marshall should have been hyping that up for that Notre Dame game. They should actually hype that up every time. Because the Pirates are like, we don't have anyone on our roster for you to come see, but we had Roberto Clemente one time. You might remember him. And then, like, whoever else they have out. Did they have that Honus Wagner statue? Who else is out beside the stadium? I can't remember now.
But I almost wonder, like, with this earlier part of the season, like, you see they lump all those ACC schools at the bottom, so that then when mid-season hits and all of them have a loss, it's like, all right, get out of here. Like you're getting the Big 12 treatment right now. That's why I said, like, when you're looking at this expansion, all it's doing is it's pulling people to really try to push to get into the Big 10 and the SEC, so that you're sitting higher in the polls, because you're going to have more people that are like, oh yeah, we definitely want you up there, because when you have an A&M loss, they can still sit comfortably in the top 25. And like some of those SEC schools, by the time the end of the year hits, they'll have 4 losses and still be sitting in the top 25. Take any one of those ACC teams that you just talked about and put 4 losses on them, they're not even in the top 50, let alone the top 25.
Well, I think the one thing that's really screwing things up, you brought up the Big 12, it's like BYU is scheduling like these Pac-12 and Big 12 schools, and yet they're having a winning record against them, but they're still like technically independent now or something. So like they're like, hey, you should have let us in the conference early, because we're really screwing you guys. Now you have a whole lump of teams like Baylor. Which one beat? Let me bring up BYU's schedule.
Oh, Kansas is winning games. They're undefeated right now.
Yeah, I know. They beat West Virginia, too, and I was thinking West Virginia was ass, but maybe Kansas is just good. So, like, BYU beats Baylor, then loses to Oregon, but yet now they have a chance against, coming up, not this week, but they have one coming up against Notre Dame, then Arkansas, then Stanford. Could you imagine if BYU, all they have to do is win, like, 2 of those other games? Like, yeah, I know they lost to Oregon, but, like, if they knock off Arkansas, then BYU is, like, right there. They're, like, becoming the Western Notre Dame at this point, where, hey, we're going to go like 9-3, and we're going to knock off some of your top teams because we're playing like this independent schedule. And I really think they're messing things up for other conferences. The other thing that messes them up, I sent it to you, the Sun Belt is the only non-Power 5 conference, which I don't agree with the Power 5, but I know people call them that. I think that they're in the same division, right? It's JMU and what's the other one? Let me just bring it up so I make sure I got it right. But James Madison just beat App State very closely. It's them and Coastal Carolina are the only 2 undefeated teams left that are not in the Power 5. And I'm counting independents in that, like BYU too. BYU lost to Oregon. So, like, at this point, how are they going to be, like, coming up, you know? So that's my number one thing. It's like, how long are we going to keep these teams around the playoff rankings? Because if there's no other team from a lower conference ranked, I'm doing a scan right now. It's really only BYU, but you can't count them. Cincinnati's receiving votes, and so is James Madison. All Tulane's down here too. So there's 3 teams that might take one of those ranking spots you talked about. But other than that, it's like, What are you doing? The Utah loss really hurt the Pac-12 too, because now Florida keeps losing. So it's like, why do we lose to those guys? Florida's not even getting votes anymore. But yet they moved Utah back up to 12. And then, like I had said, I'm like, hey, is one of these next 3 teams going to take Michigan's spot? Oklahoma's like, no, we're losing, so we're out of here. USC's like, we're going to barely beat Oregon State. So you can just keep us where we are. We don't want that smoke. Kansas struggled against, who did they play? They played Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is awful. No offense to them. They're 1-3, Matt. They were 1-2. They hung with Kentucky and honestly could have won that game. And so you're telling me that Kentucky's ranked number 8 or whatever? I honestly think they have them at 7. I honestly think they should have just moved Tennessee up to 7 because they beat Pitt and they're undefeated. They beat Florida. Let's move them up. I know what Kentucky, they ended up, that they beat Florida. Is that what their thing is? So they beat Florida too, but they played no one and they struggled against Northern Illinois. I would almost even put, and I'm saying this without looking at their schedule, but I would put Oklahoma State ahead of them too. That's just me. Oh, they did the Michigan thing where they beat up a bunch of nobodies. But they did beat Arizona State with our boy Herm Edwards that had the Wake Forest issue where supposedly team staffers were leaking information to the other teams so that they could hope to get him fired. Like, how much big of an asshole do you have to be where your own team's like, let's just tell them what we're doing?
But you know what? I'll take that a step further. That they were hired by him.
Yeah.
So they accepted positions with him, and then are like, "I'm going to cut your legs." And I think those are the types of things that I hope those people never get jobs anywhere else ever again. Like, that's such a dick move.
Not even that. They have to be firing themselves at the same time, right?
Yes.
Because, do you not realize that the next coach is probably going to clean house? Your team is bad. It's not like Urban Meyer's leaving because he's getting forced out and Ryan Day is going to keep everyone around. You're getting your coach fired, but not because of a scandal. You're just because they're losing. It's almost like, who talked them into it? It'd be dumb. Do they not have families? I feel like someone's wife would have been like, are you serious? You're going to throw our life away? Where are we going to go whenever he gets fired? Well, we don't know. We just don't like that guy. And then they're like, are other coaches going to hire you now because you're on a staff that was leaking information? And just like the other thing we talked about, you don't know whose names are where. That's on the Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/southboundsports if you want to hear the extended one. We talked a little bit about the Celtics situation before on the extended show. So check that out. Doing a little callback there. And then, we can pretty much wrap up the free show here. Did you have anything else? I know I cut myself off there, but that's pretty much all I had for Herm Edwards. I just don't see how someone could get him fired and then sit around and be like, whatever. You know?
Yeah.
Because, you're a coach, you're working your way up. If let's say I came in and you hired me on your staff and I'm like, you know what? I really don't like Matt anymore. We're losing. I'm just going to tell other teams what we're doing just to make sure we lose. Why would you want to be a loser?
Yeah.
I don't get it. But that's all we have for the free show. Like I said, go to patreon.com/southboundsports and sign up if you want the extended show. We're going to do the final bell here. But thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.